This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Police free nearly 150 from school in northern Nigeria. A UN delegation arrives in Juba, South Sudan for peace talks. And Ethiopia's Nobel Prize-winning Prime Minister launches book with 1 million copies already printed. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. In business, 6th World Internet Conference kicks off in the eastern Chinese city of Fujian. And in sports, we meet Kenya's high school teacher with a passion for superbike racing. Let's begin in Burkina Faso, where 4 soldiers and a police officer have been killed in twin attacks in the northern part of the country. Another 11 soldiers have been wounded after attackers targeted 2 military bases in Lorum and Yatenga provinces. The army says security forces had successfully fought off the assailants before the arrival of reinforcements. Until 2015, Burkina Faso was largely spared the violence that hit Mali and Niger, neighbouring the country to the north. But attackers, some of them linked to Al-Qaeda and others to ISIL, have started infiltrating the country's border points. About 600 people have so far been killed in the attacks. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the crackdown on Islamic schools continues. In the 4th raid in less than a month, police on Saturday said they rescued nearly 150 students at a school in Kaduna State. But, unlike the other raids, female captives were discovered for the first time. CGTN's Daniela Pearson reports.
In Nigeria's predominantly Muslim north, al-Majiris, or Islamic schools, are where parents can send children to receive a more disciplined education. But at this school, instead of being taught the Quran, students were subjected to torture and abuse.
They chain you up with your legs and your hands and they beat you for a while and leave you in one corner for a while. So there's extreme punishment for talking about the conditions there.
Only men and boys were discovered at the other facilities. But Kaduna's Commissioner for Human Services has confirmed that 22 of the 147 released captives were female. This latest raid brings the total number of released from religious schools to over 1,000.
We'll tie you like this to a pole, tie you like this, sit you down, put fire with hierarchy, like hot fire, like about 7 blankets they used to cover you.
In June, President Muhammadu Buhari said he plans to ban al-Majiris altogether, but not right away. But many hope the current police raids will put more pressure on the Nigerian leader to take action on these loosely regulated institutions. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
South Sudan's government says it's hopeful that President Salva Kiir's meeting with opposition leader Riek Machar will resolve outstanding issues in the country's peace process. Designated Vice President Riek Machar is in Juba to meet President Kiir with just 3 weeks to the planned formation of a unity government. The 2 former rival leaders began the meeting on Saturday and are scheduled to continue on Sunday. CGTN's Patrick Hoyt reports.
This meeting is expected to come up with a way forward on forming a new government in South Sudan by the November 12th deadline. President Salva Kiir's government says the unity government should be formed as scheduled in the agreement.
The meeting was to see the way forward, discuss all the other outstanding issues that are connected with the implementation of the agreement. And among them is, of course, the security arrangements.
However, opposition leader Riek Machar wants some key parts of the agreement fully implemented before installing a unity government. One contentious issue is the number of states in the country. Riek Machar's group wants 10 administrative units instead of the current 32. The opposition also insists that it wants an overhaul of the security sector before forming a unity government.
We should unify and train and redeploy unified forces. That's why we put it as a condition for SPLMIO to form the government of national unity. You need to solve the issues of security arrangement.
Now heads of security teams are scheduled to brief President Salva Kiir together with opposition leader Riek Machar on Sunday. That briefing will be on progress made in security sector reforms. It is expected to help the two leaders form a unified decision on setting up a new government. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Well, staying in South Sudan, a UN Security Council delegation arrived in Juba today. The team will hold talks with President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar. The delegation is expected to encourage progress in the peace deal signed a year ago that's been fraught with delays. Kiir and Machar are expected to form a transitional government by November the 12th. However, many of the conditions of the peace deal have not been met. The US says that it will reevaluate its relationship with South Sudan if that deadline is missed. At least 400,000 people have been killed in the 5-year civil war and millions have been displaced. Well, for more on this, let's now speak to CGTN Patrick Oyet in Juba for us. Patrick, tell us more about the UN delegation in Juba. Have they held talks with the South Sudanese leaders yet?
Yes, Karen, the delegation of the UN Security Council arrived in Juba on Sunday morning. They thereafter went to meet with the United Nations mission officials in South Sudan. They have finished that meeting. Now, as we speak, they are actually meeting with President Salva Kiir. After meeting President Salva Kiir, they will proceed to meet other parties that are signatory to the current peace deal. Thereafter, they will brief the media and they're scheduled to leave the country today. We are told they would be going to Ethiopia to meet with some members of the African Union, also on this same peace process in South Sudan. Now, many people here are very happy about this visit because, first of all, those we have talked to say this visit shows that the world is still concerned about the crisis in South Sudan, that the world wants this war to come to an end. So they are happy that the UN Security Council delegation is here. And of course, also, this is to tell the leaders of South Sudan that, people still have faith in them. The international community, the United Nations still has faith in them that they are going to resolve this problem. We know that, of course, there are disagreements. Opposition group led by Riek Machar is saying they are not ready to form the government on 12th of November because they say security sector reforms have to be completed, and also the number of people have to be reduced. And now,
Oh, I'm terribly sorry about that. We lost Patrick Oyet there. We'll try and get him a bit later in the programme if we can. Let's move on to other news now. And meanwhile, in Botswana, they're gearing up for its most tightly contested poll yet. The upcoming general election on Wednesday could see the ruling Botswana Democratic Party lose even more seats in Parliament. The former but still influential president, Ian Khama, has lent his support to the opposition instead of his hand-picked successor and incumbent president, Mokgweetsi Masisi. The leader of the opposition Umbrella for Democratic Change coalition is 49-year-old Duma Boko. He's confident that his coalition will secure at least 51% of the vote. And if his prediction is correct, Boko could be the country's next president, as the party that wins the most parliamentary seats decides who leads the country. With the election just days away, thousands of opposition supporters have been attending a rally in the capital, Gaborone.
My conclusion about the Duma Boko is that he's willing and ready to fight for his people. He's for us, the ordinary Botswana. So I'm for that guy who's willing to fight for me. Because I cannot fight for myself. I'm powerless.
The BDP all along has been saying it's going to create jobs. From the time when we gained independence, they've been saying the same thing. It's just the same old song.
To Mozambique now, where the country's main opposition Renamo party has called for Tuesday's elections to be cancelled, citing violence and fraud. The Renamo party is accusing the ruling party, Frelimo, of violating the August peace deal between the two sides. Frelimo has, however, dismissed the allegations, saying that the elections passed off smoothly. The election is seen as a test of the peace deal between the two parties, which fought a bitter 1975 to 1991 civil war, with renewed hostilities from 2013 to 2016. Provincial election results are expected to be announced on Monday, with final results of all the polls set to be published within 15 days of the vote. Well, we are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson sends letter to Brussels seeking further Brexit delay. And Ethiopia's Nobel-winning Prime Minister launches book with 1 million copies already printed.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
Reporting from Nairobi's city center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
To Brexit matters now, and the United Kingdom's Parliament has voted to postpone a decision on whether to back Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit deal, effectively forcing the British leader to request a 3-month Brexit extension from the European Union instead. But despite sending an extension request letter to the EU, Johnson has made it clear that it's something he doesn't want.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has delivered a letter to the European Council asking for a 3-month extension to the Brexit deadline. Johnson handed in the letter, unsigned in protest, to Donald Tusk, President of the European Council. He also put in another letter voicing his opposition to a delay, as he stated after the vote.
I will not negotiate a delay with the EU, and neither does the law compel me to do so. I will tell our friends and colleagues in the EU exactly what I have told everyone in the last 88 days that I've served as Prime Minister, that further delay would be bad for this country, bad for our European Union, and bad for democracy.
So the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
This is after the PM lost a Commons vote on Saturday. The newly adopted Ledwin Amendment requires Mr Johnson to ask the EU for an extension if no meaningful vote takes place. If the delay is not approved by the EU, the UK will have to deal with a hard Brexit scenario. 马克 CGTN.
Well, the delay on Johnson's Brexit deal has once again plunged the UK into uncertainty. Our next report takes a look at some scenarios that could arise.
Order! Order!
What the Prime Minister had in mind as a day that would bring an end to the Brexit saga is turning into one that may prolong it more than he'd like. To understand why, let's take a look at least 3 of the possibilities that may unfold. First, Johnson says he's going to push for another vote on his deal Monday. If it passes, this would be the most favorable outcome for him. And he says it'll favor the entire UK as well.
Unite! Unite! Unite the warring instincts in us all. And now is the time for this great House of Commons to come together and bring the country together today.
But this hinges on if the House Speaker allows a vote to take place. And even if it does, it would still need enough votes to get through. Another possibility, the EU grants the extension, and there's what's known as a meaningful vote on Johnson's deal. MPs would be able to put forward their own amendments. This could be anything from keeping Northern Ireland in the EU's custom union to putting in labor rights protections. Opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn has already told MPs any deal must include things like environmental and job protections.
This deal is not good for jobs, damaging for our industry, and a threat to our environment and our natural world. It's not a good deal for our country, and future generations will feel the impact.
The third major possibility is the extension is granted, and a general election is called, or a referendum is held, or both. A general election could be called if it's motioned in Parliament and receives 2/3 majority support, or if a vote of no confidence is made in Johnson's government. And that could either mean Johnson would hand over the reins or stay in power with more or less control over Parliament. Hundreds of thousands of protesters outside of Westminster while the vote was taking place, however, were calling for a second referendum.
Sir Patrick Stewart!
For those demonstrating, such as award-winning British actor Patrick Stewart, a people's vote is crucial for upholding democracy.
Over the last 18 months in every region and nation of this great United Kingdom, we've made the democratic case for a people's vote. Because, let me be clear, there was nothing democratic about that referendum.
So, many more challenges and questions have come about after Saturday's vote, and with more uncertainty comes the possibility of this dragging out even more. Timothy Ulrich, CGTN.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has launched a book on his reconciliation policy titled Medema. Launch ceremonies for the book were held simultaneously in 60 cities and towns across the country. This comes a week after Abiy won the Nobel Prize for Peace. CGTN's Giram Chala has more.
This Abiy Ahmed authored Medema, which can directly be translated as to add up, has 280 pages and is written in 3 languages with over 1 million copies available for sale. The book Medimmer is said to have roadmap and guiding principles on the new idea of governing and uniting Ethiopia. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told people who gathered for the release his book has alignments with the present and the future of Ethiopia.
Correcting the mistakes of yesterday is what Medimmer is. If you ask me which mistake, at least here in Ethiopia, 1 out of 4 Ethiopians is poor. Millions lack shelter and many do not eat 3 times a day. This is not Eritrea's, Djibouti's or Kenya's mistake. This is our lame execution of plans. Medimmer intends to fix all these problems.
Across Ethiopia, more than 60 cities and towns have at the same time saw the release of the much anticipated book Medimmer. But it is here in the capital Addis Ababa the grand event was held. Many have expressed their support.
I am super excited to be part of Dr. Abiy Ahmed's book. The book has raised a vast range of ideas and it will transform the country. Medimmer will help to guarantee the peace and prosperity of Ethiopia.
The concepts that the books have are all crucial to the unity of Ethiopia. It is fantastic. The Prime Minister has written the science, the politics, and all that is needed for love and togetherness. We knew this concept when Abiy came to power. However, it is great to have the Medimmer concept on a book.
Many Ethiopians now expect to see major happenings to take place in the country over the coming few months. First, the announcement of the new unity party dubbed Ethiopian Prosperity Party, which will probably replace the ruling EPRDF party. Second is the general elections coming up. Analysts say all are decisive for Ethiopia's future. Group Data CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Refugees and asylum seekers remain camped at the Cape Town offices of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. The group wants the refugee body to help relocate them to other countries. They say that they fear for their lives after recent xenophobia attacks against African migrants in South Africa. They have vowed not to leave the premises until the UNHCR provides a solution to their predicament.
We're demanding that the South African government should release us and let the UNHCR take charge of us so that they can remove us from South Africa to somewhere else where we can feel safe.
We are because we want our voice to be heard. Yeah, we are because we want something must change about us.
A maritime case between 2 East African neighbours has been postponed until June 2020. The case between Somalia and Kenya was due to be heard early next month, but the International Court of Justice says it will no longer tolerate any more delays to the process. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo reports now from Mogadishu.
The International Court of Justice has postponed the hearing of a much-anticipated maritime case between Somalia and Kenya. The case has been moved to June 2020 following a request from Nairobi. Mogadishu had earlier warned against any postponement, but has since accepted the court's verdict.
This is the final postponement to the court hearing. The International Court of Justice has issued a statement on the same. There will be no single day extended again. The court has asked both Somalia and Kenya to avail themselves for oral hearings from the 8th to the 12th of June 2020.
The move has angered many in the country. Locals argue that it's a part of a plot to delay justice over the ownership of territory along the Indian Ocean, said to have rich oil and gas deposits.
I am not pleased with the postponement, but it is my wish that the case will be heard next year. I'm certain that Somalia will win the case. And this is the reason Kenya is seeking to delay the case.
The disputed area belongs to Somalia and no one can claim it. I urge the Somali public to remain optimistic despite the postponement and support the president and the government in its endeavors.
The hearing of the case coincides with planned parliamentary elections slated for next year. The maritime case is also expected to become a key issue of concern in the campaign period that is expected to kick off mid-next year. The outcome of the case is also expected to have serious political implications with presidential elections set for early 2021. A meeting between Somali and Kenyan leaders brokered by the Egyptian president and the current African Union chairman Abdel Fattah al-Sisi failed to yield tangible results last month in New York. Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo also ruled out the possibility of an out-of-court settlement, a move proposed by Kenya.
Somalia has pledged to comply with the court's final judgment and to accept the boundary that is delimited by the court. And we trust that when that judgment is issued and the boundary is established, a lasting settlement of this long-lasting dispute will finally be achieved.
The maritime dispute has been a major cause of a diplomatic standoff between Nairobi and Mogadishu. Both sides, however, agreed last month to restore diplomatic ties as they await the court's final judgment. Abdul Aziz Bilon, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
A study by UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Agency, has called on the government of Uganda to pay urgent attention to childhood nutrition. The State of Uganda's Children's Report found that 3 in every 10 children under the age of 5 are malnourished. CT10's Isabel Nakiria now reports.
Jacinta Akiranyo's 1-year-old baby is on a special diet. The family has been receiving medical treatment here due to poor nutrition. Tracking the weight of children is essential in improving their health.
I've learned that I should try to feed my baby as much as possible by giving a variety of bodybuilding foods like eggs, greens, and milk.
Jacinta's baby and hundreds more in Uganda's eastern district of Karamoja are not being adequately fed. That's partly because of the region's semi-arid climate, which makes it difficult to grow food. But a lack of information is compounding the problem. UNICEF is trying to teach people in the hardest hit areas how to maximize nutritional value from available resources. They are hoping educating parents will help improve development of children in Uganda. Experts point to a lack of nutritional diversity in children's diets.
If you further analyze the diet of our Ugandan children, it is predominantly a starch-based, carbohydrate-based diet. A child is fed on cassava, a child is fed on sweet potatoes, a child is fed on posho, and the diet is lacking in terms of the bodybuilding foods that children need because they're in a rapid state of growth.
UNICEF study found that poor nutrition has stunted the growth of 200 million children around the world. In Uganda, nutritionists say that can be prevented.
We actually do grow a variety of foods, but the question is, how are we able to use the locally available foods to improve the local diets of our children? Add a vegetable to that plate, give a fruit to that child, so that at the end of the day, the plate for that child has more of the beans and peas, the vegetables, and less of the cassava, potatoes, and the posho.
The report points to changing weather patterns that are affecting agriculture production in Uganda. But there is also widespread ignorance about proper diets for children. Feeding programs like this one are working to improve that. And nutritionists hope they can give mothers like Jacinta a jump start in helping their babies grow without deficiencies. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
We've got all the business news coming up for you after the break, including 6th World Internet Conference kicks off in the eastern Chinese city of Wuzhen. And Uganda launches 3 new pest-resistant coffee varieties to boost production.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The opening ceremony of the 6th World Internet Conference was held this morning in the eastern Chinese city of Wuzhen. It will kick off a series of sub-forums that discuss the future of the Internet. CGTN's Yang Chengxi reports.
This year marks half a century since the birth of the Internet, one of the 20th century inventions that has brought the biggest changes to the way people work and live. At the opening ceremony of the 6th World Internet Conference in Wuzhen, the head of the publicity department of the CPC Central Committee, Huang Kunming, read out a congratulatory letter from Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Countries should work together to promote better internet governance and strive to build a community with a shared future in cyberspace.
Now, in the following keynote speech, Huang said the Internet will be the key strategic resource of the future that can promote people's welfare around the world. Promoting the digital economy and the new technologies will remain an important goal for China.
The World Internet Conference is also sponsored by GSMA, the trade body that represents the interest of mobile network operators worldwide.
So China, leads the world in mobile internet for sure. 850 million people access the internet via mobile devices in China, so it's by far the largest in the world.
China is one of the leaders of world telecommunications industry in 5G technology, which is expected to be a game changer in mobile internet. Telecom providers and tech firms like Huawei are all showing their 5G user scenario demos at the Light of the Internet Expo here in Wuzhen. The small town is now covered by 5G signals, as is most of the urban areas of Shanghai. Experts say the full commercialization of 5G could accelerate next year. Yang Chengxi, CGTN, Wuzhen, Zhejiang Province.
To Uganda now, where the country has launched 3 new coffee varieties that are pest resistant, but can also endure harsh weather conditions. The new varieties of Robusta coffee, produced by the National Agricultural Research Organization, will boost production and improve the livelihoods of many dependent on the cash crop, which is also Uganda's top agricultural export. Michael Baleki now reports.
Markers for identification.
A healthy cluster of coffee cherries. Many years of research now coming to maturity. This is one of the new coffee varieties bred by Ugandan researchers.
The varieties have resistance to other diseases. Coffee first, they are high yielding, they have big beans, and they have got good aroma, fragrance, and taste.
The research was in response to the coffee wilt disease that wiped out more than 12 million Robusta coffee trees across the country about 20 years ago. The National Agricultural Research Organization says the country suffered low yields and lost in excess of $100 million worth of export earnings.
Yields in Uganda have been so low, about half a kilogram per tree, compared to countries we are trying to compete with like Vietnam, who can get up to 10 kilos per tree. And the biggest problem have been pests and diseases, poor varieties, climate change, and poor management or poor agronomy.
Coffee is one of the most important cash crops in Uganda, playing a major role in the livelihoods of more than 1.5 million households. These new coffee varieties, Robusta 8, 9, and 10, are being multiplied at this nursery. Researchers say the new plants will help farmers replace the old coffee trees that have been affected by the wilt disease. The carefully selected lines of Robusta varieties are now being cloned and tested on soils across all coffee growing areas in Uganda before they are made available to farmers.
If we have high-yielding coffee varieties, like the scientists said, with high cup quality, that means people like the flavor, they like the taste of the coffee. It means it can be premium coffee. That means realizing premium prices.
One of Uganda's goals is to achieve production of 20 million 60-kilogram bags of coffee by the year 2025 from the current 4 million 60-kilogram bags. But researchers say the 20 million bags target can only be achieved if farmers take up the new varieties and the country's coffee farming practices are significantly modernized. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Mukono, Central Uganda.
Now we head to Tanzania, where the government is looking to diversify its tourism sector as a way to bring in more of those important tourist dollars. It's looking to introduce conference and cruise tourism, as well as open up new national parks. CGTN's Daniel Kijo reports now from the Swahili International Tourism Expo in Dar es Salaam.
It's a traditional Maasai dance from a unique tribe with a rich culture. These Maasai dancers run an eco lodge and are here at the 2019 Swahili Tourism Expo to showcase the Maasai culture and way of life. The expo is aimed at boosting tourism in Tanzania by connecting people who work in tourism with potential customers in and out of the country.
We have helped the Maasai become more well-known. Through the beadwork we make and other crafts you see here, we show people that we can do this as well. Most people haven't seen much of our culture.
The Maasai people are one of the most popular Tanzanian tourist attractions. So are Tanzania's national parks. According to the World Trade Organization, in 2018, Tanzania earned about $2.4 billion from tourism, making it one of the country's leading sources of income.
The government has made a commitment to grow tourism by improving the infrastructure that makes it possible for more visitors to travel here by air and by car.
The national airline now flies to destinations in India and China. The government also opened a new airport terminal with the capacity to handle up to 6 million passengers per year. Tanzania is already one of the leading tourist destinations in the world, and experts say there's much more to come. The government wants operators to offer a wider choice of tourist activities beyond the safari holidays that have become so successful. Many countries in Africa offer wildlife tourism, and the Tanzania Tourism Board says it's working hard to spread the word that is not all Tanzania has to offer.
Tanzania, we need to go an extra mile to see that more tourists come, not only for our wildlife, but to see our beaches, to come and hear about our culture, to come and see for themselves where the first man made his first step. And that's the places in Tanzania.
Using expos like this to promote itself as a country rich in culture, adventure and beauty, in the competitive jungle of tourism, Tanzania is hoping to become the king. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
To South Africa, where this year's annual Cape Town Boat Show is underway. The event is not just the continent's premier boating and lifestyle show, but it's an opportunity for local manufacturers to showcase their latest products. CGTN's Travis Andrews has more.
There are many people who dream of living a life sailing into the endless horizon, and the Cape Town Boat Show certainly provides the tools necessary to make that dream a reality. But the event is more than just that. It's also one time of the year that all the manufacturers can come together and show off their latest wares. South Africa is currently the second largest producer of luxury sailing catamarans in the world, and local builders are beginning to look closer to home for market expansion.
We do have a boating culture in South Africa. We have a lot of South Africans buying boats, so having an international boat show is crucial. And what we do want to do is start getting more of our African neighbors to send delegations down to come and see what we're doing here. We're selling them patrol boats and security boats. The oil and gas sector's booming, and a lot of them are getting all their supply vessels from us.
For Cape Town shipyard Robertson and Kane, the event is a major opportunity to also lure new customers to their new products. The event shows that new opportunities are also being unlocked for local talent in more skilled areas such as marine engineering, will form one of the bedrocks of the industry.
More boat building yards will definitely be a good thing. And then also just with the general employment. There is a lot of employees in the boating industry, but we can definitely increase that. And if we look at South Africa as a whole, we shouldn't be closing yacht clubs, we should be opening them. That will open doors for more builders to build yachts.
A key component of the show is also other water toys and the skills needed to develop them. After all, marine engines such as this can be complex machines. It's not just multi-million-dollar boats that are the big draw card here, because some vessels are big enough for just one person, such as JetSurf's fully motor-powered surfboard that can give riders quite an airy ride. Its European manufacturers, though, do see great potential in the market here.
I think the potential is very, very big, and mainly for us, it's great market because here is the season through the winter, which is when is the winter in Europe. So our factory could grow, going and producing all the year, and it's a product which is super fun. And I think there is a lot of people which wants to have fun on the water.
Of course, many came for the big item tickets as well, including the ultra-luxurious yachts, an obvious choice for a little indulgence for those with deep pockets and big dreams. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
We're going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including Chinese art company Hangzhou City delivers a spectacular performance at the Grand Theatre of Dakar in Senegal.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
In Senegal, a visiting Chinese arts group has been dazzling audiences with displays of kung fu, acrobatics and various other performances. The cultural event at the Grand Theatre of Dakar was hosted by the Chinese embassy to deepen the long-standing friendship between China and Senegal. The show by the Hangzhou City Chinese Art Company is part of the 70th anniversary celebrations of the founding of the People's Republic of China. The colourful event was an opportunity for the Senegalese public to discover Chinese culture through song and dance.
Tonight we saw an amazing show full of surprises. It reminds me a bit of my time in China. And here, I was immersed in a very wonderful world, and I keep a good memory.
What took place tonight is a great example of how within an hour we could trace and show all the splendor of a culture, but also the whole course of a story. The opera scene we saw here condenses in a very short time the everyday life, as well as the long road of Chinese culture and civilization.
The prestigious festival Carthage Music Days GMC 2019 is held this week in Tunis and other regions across the country. Global music bands have gathered to participate in the event, which has revived the arts scene in Tunis. A special night will feature music from North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa in a bid to create a new cultural project, bridging all parts of the continent.
Sound Escape is the name of this fantastic show by Rasen Fandry.
The Tunisian artist says his performance celebrates music and its creativity, diversity and richness.
It's a solo project, but I invite guests in other parts of the show. It's a mix of genres and different styles from North Africa, which I do classify. It's the results of years of work with Tunisian, African and international musicians.
The Carthage Music Days is a platform of alternative music. It is an occasion for young African creators to establish lasting relations with artists from the whole world and internationally renowned professionals.
There is no limit for music genres in Africa. My goal is to mix music from the North and Sub-Saharan Africa, played by different musicians. It's an extraordinary experience.
I present traditional Moroccan music in a new shape. It's an African project with an international spirit.
Several shows are produced by international bands of 40 nationalities. Organizers believe that music can strengthen human ties. GMC has provided financial support to artists to exchange, travel and perform in Africa.
We try to open the music market and music industry to the African music, and also to connect Tunisian one to the African one, because you know we have a lot of frontiers, but at least with culture and music we try to develop more connections.
The organizing committee has encouraged young Tunisian creators in the official competition. The committee had received 138 projects, including 37 Tunisian and 101 foreign.
The official competition of the JMC 2019 includes 13 shows, 9 Tunisian and 4 foreign. A new competition dedicated to the Tunisian Andalusian music entitled JMC Malouf is also on the agenda of the event, which has revived cultural life in Tunisia. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, we've got all the sports news coming up for you after the break, including we meet Kenya's high school teacher with a passion for superbike racing.